Hello, in this session I would like to talk about Business Central integration and extensibility of the Business Central plugin unit provided by Dynamicweb. My name is Dan Christensen and I'm a product manager of integrations at Dynamicweb. Under normal circumstances you would have seen Dmitry Benyuk at my side. He's our senior developer on everything related to integrations. Unfortunately, he couldn't join this recorded session, so I'll do my very best to give his code justice as I walk through it during this session. In this session, I'm going to show you some key features of the plugin unit for Business Central. It's going to be focused on customer-specific prices, discounts controlled by Business Central, but also discounts controlled by Dynamicweb. Of course, there are more features, but those features you can always look up other places. These are just the ones that I've selected for this session. Then I'll move into a talk about code units, extensions, apps, and events. And this might come in handy for either ERP partners or a Dynamicweb partner that works together with an ERP partner provided by a customer. And then finally, we're going to talk about extending the plugin unit that we provide for Business Central. And we're going to revisit a extension scenario that we showed in the previous session, and then we're just sort of like going to round it off and finish it by looking at the custom fields on the products and orders that made that scenario possible. Some viewers of this session might not have seen the other session, so I'll just do a quick recap of the extension scenario that we did in the first session, so that we have everything fresh in mind before we move along. In that session, we added a new product field, we added a new order field, and we extended the live integration to send a gift card message to an external system once the order was created by the ERP system. And in this session, we'll show how to send the value of that product field and receive the value of the order field. And we'll get to that in a brief moment. I just want to cover some of the standard features first. I'll begin with customer-specific prices. So here you have a product, a Berlin chair, with a unit price of 125. And here you have a customer record with a contact code and a list of customer-specific prices. And this customer can buy that Berlin chair for 100 instead of 125. Let's see it in action. The Berlin chair is 125, and when I log in with the customer, it's 100. Next, I'll look at discounts controlled by Business Central. The same customer has a line discount of 10% on a product called London Chair. And there's also an invoice discount of 5% on all customers. Let's see that in action. So I see my London Chair, I log in as the customer and immediately get my 10% discount. But then there's also a 5% invoice discount. Let's take a look at how it's set up in live integration settings. As we've seen, ERP controls discount calculations, but we might want to change the labels that is used to designate these discounts in the checkout on the card. I'll rephrase them, and it'll look like this. It's even possible to translate these labels into various website languages. And let's now look at discounts controlled by Dynamicweb. So now we uncheck the ERP controls discount calculations to allow for Dynamicweb to do those calculations. Then we create a product discount on the Paris chair that gives the customer a 10% discount. And here it is in action. Here's the corresponding order in Business Central. And the most important thing to note here is the attachment, because now it's not Business Central that controls discounts, but it's actually Dynamicweb. So when Dynamicweb does this, it'll add an attachment that will specify what line item it was the discount was applied to, the name of the discount, which campaign it originated from inside Dynamicweb, what type it is, and what value that type is. So if it's percentage, then of course it's a percentage value. If it's an amount, then it's a nominal value. And if it is a product, then it is a product number. In fact, let's try to do that. So we change the current discount into a POGO discount, so buy one, get one free. So if you buy the Paris chair, you get a Mexico chair for free. Freeze that image. And then we'll go to Business Central and see how it looks there. So a new order and a new attachment. And in this attachment, we can see the updated campaign. We can now see that it's a product and the value, which is the part number of that Mexico chair. And I'll just step into that order so that you can see that the Mexico chair is indeed for free. There are two overall reasons for choosing to have Dynamicweb controlled discounts. And one is that Dynamicweb can do discounts that you might not be able to do in Business Central. So for instance, the POGO or buy one, get one free, that's a B2C discount type that you don't get in a standard Business Central. And the other scenario could be that, or the other reason is that you have a different organization handling the e-commerce platform than perhaps the back office people maintaining discounts in Business Central or NAV. So now that we've covered some of the standard features of the plugin unit for Business Central, let's turn our attention to the next topic. So when we talk about the plugin unit of Business Central and we talk about extending it, it's important to get a few facts straight. So for many, many years, there's been something called a code unit. That's something you installed in an NAV, and you also install that in a Business Central. It used to be based on CAL code, where you could essentially rewire everything inside NAV. Microsoft has now switched to the AL language, which is a language that you can now write in Microsoft Visual Studio Code instead of the old NAV development environment. And now everything must be extension based. And the same thing is true for our code unit, by the way. So if you have to do anything with that, you have to extend that as well. So that means that what we call a plugin unit for Business Central is in fact a code unit. But this code unit is extension based, so it is also referred to as an extension. Finally, in order to be able to add an extension to a Microsoft hosted or software as a service offered Business Central, you need to have an app on AppSource. So the extension is in fact an app on AppSource. And in order to be able to have an app on AppSource, you need to have a reserved object range so that Microsoft can always guarantee that when they place our app or our extension or our code unit, whatever you want to call it, when it's placed on a tenant or a customer instance of a Business Central, then it's always placed in the same object range. It also means that the source code of that app must always come from Dynamicweb, so it cannot come from anywhere else. So that means when we deliver the extension or the app, whatever you want to call it, for an on-premise environment, then we ship it or deliver it as a runtime package where the source code is not available. So there is simply no way to alter the source code of our plugin unit as you could for NAV. Now, anyone is welcome to get the source code for debugging purposes, to step into the code and so on, but it has to remain on a dev environment. So you cannot push it to a staging or a production environment. And all of this leads up to the fact that you have to extend our code unit, and for that purpose, we've created a lot of events that you can subscribe to and essentially override everything we do inside our plugin unit. Now, I've said we have more than 70 events. That's a marketing number. It's probably close to 60. But it's just because some of the events are wrapping some methods that can do more than one thing based on the parameters that you send in. So all in all, it's more than 70. So if you ever end up in a situation where you have to work with our extension and extend it, then I can tell you that there is a video guide. There's a link here, but you can't click it. So I'll just show you where it's placed on the documentation side. So you find the guide under Integration and Extensibility, and that video guide will show you how to create a ping pong custom request on top of our code unit by extending our code unit. And if that is not enough, there's also a written guide underneath that will give you 7 examples of ways that you can alter the standard functionality of the code unit through the use of events. So now we arrive at a point where if we had all met at Summit, Dimitri would have taken over and he would have made a more immersive walkthrough of the code that extends standard functionality of both Business Central and our plugin unit to add a custom field to a product and ensure that it flows through the get ecom data for products, so the XML request, and also that the order field coming back from Dynamicweb into Business Central would also have a corresponding field that could store the gift card message. And then he would also go through 2 scenarios where he adds a custom request. Now I'm going to do that instead, and we will look at code, and I will try to make it as immersive, but it will not be the real deal, I have to say. But I'll do my very best. So we have to complete this extension scenario by adding a custom field to products for gift wrappable products and an order field to contain gift card messages. We'll then look at 2 custom requests, so one to get quotes from Business Central and the other one to submit a product number and a language code and get the translated description of the product and its variants. So in order to add a custom product field in Business Central, you need 2 basic extensions. You need to extend the table of the items so that it can contain a Boolean value, and then you need to extend the page so that you can show that Boolean value as a checkbox. And in this case, you can see that the gift wrap checkbox becomes available, and the end user can say, yes, the Mexico chair is a gift wrappable product. Then we subscribe to the event on add product XML node, which is an event from Dynamicweb's plugin unit. And in this case, we just detect if an item is gift wrappable true, then we also write true, and if it's false, then we write false. And now every time you request products, you'll get the gift wrap field in the response. And here's a similar piece of code that extends the sales header table with the new gift card message field. And we also extend the page so that we can show it in the UI. So now it's ready to be filled out when an order comes in. And here's a piece of code that uses the event on before update sales header and make sure to add the gift card message that's in the XML order XML being sent from Dynamicweb into Business Central. So that closes the loop on all the extensions you need to do on Business Central and from session 1 in Dynamicweb to be able to sell gift wrappable products with a gift card message. Now I want to focus my attention on custom requests. Oftentimes we hear this request, could you do this or that additional request? And oftentimes it's very specific to one customer, so we can't do it. But I just want to show you, so that you can show it to an ERP partner, how easy it is to add your own custom request response. It always begins with the global subscriber. So there's an event on before execute request, and that triggers or fires just before the main process dispatches the incoming request to whatever method it is you want to use. So you can subscribe to that and you can listen before execution, and then you can detect a custom request coming in, and you can stop execution of the standard process, and then you can process your custom request instead of the standard requests in the code unit. And you can actually see the two custom requests that I'm about to show, so the get quotes and the translate product. So those two are the ones that I can detect and that I can process instead of whatever is the standard. And here's the code to implement the get quotes request. So basically it just grabs all sales headers of type quote and then iterates all of them and adds whatever lines underneath, and then it adds it to the XML document. And here's the code to translate products. So it takes the input parameters, item number and language code. So it looks up the item, and if it has translations in that language code, and also if it has variants with translations in the same language, then it'll add all of it to an XML. So a takeaway here is that once you've started the path of having custom requests, adding another one can be as little as 50 additional lines of code. But apart from that, I think the most crucial aspect is to just try them out and see what they can do. So here's my Business Central. I have one sales quote for Sportsmire Furnishings. I open the quote and I find one line item. So it's a bicycle, item number 1000, and the total is 6,165. I'll use the test tool to run my request, and we can see that the response contains the values that we just saw in Business Central. Let's then look at that quoted item. So we can see that the description is bicycle, so it's English, and it has two variants, red and white. And if we look at the translations table, then we can see that both the master or the main product itself and the two variants have been translated into Danish. And once again, I'll use the test tool to run that request, and I'll input the exact same item number and language code, and then we'll see that all the variants and the product itself has been translated to Danish. That concludes the final topic. So we've now seen how to extend the Dynamicweb plugin unit. We've seen how to extend so that we can create new product fields on products and order fields on sales headers, and also ensuring that information flows in both directions. And also we looked at two custom request responses, and in general just covered how to build a new custom request. And those two custom request responses allowed you to grab quotes from Business Central or translate a product into a specific language along with its variants. And ultimately we rounded off the extension scenario that we began in the first session. So we now allow someone to implement gift wrappable products with gift card messages, which is not a standard feature, but it's something you can build using the methods described in these two sessions. I also covered the relations between what is a code unit, what is an extension, and what is an app, and how you can use events in general. And then I began with demoing some of the standard features that you get when you install the plugin unit for Business Central. Thank you everyone for listening, both this session and the other, and I hope to see all of you at Summit next time around.